There's been a lot of issues with what's going on with the Defense Department or the Department of War wanting to use AI autonomously without any human oversight. And Anthropic basically put their foot down and said, you can't use our platform for that. And OpenAI did not have such concerns and, signed on the dotted line. So we'll see how that plays out.
I feel like all of the movies of my 80s childhood are coming to fruition between war games becoming fully autonomous and Skynet becoming fully autonomous. I know how this one ends. Not well.
Yeah.
Howdy and welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us for our AI episode. I'm here with Shahrad Milanfar. We are not joined by Marshall Cole today, and that's for a sad reason, and a reason that I want to pay some homage to. Marshall's father passed away last week, and for those who don't know, Marshall's father is Jonathan Cole, one of the founding members of Marshall's firm. So not just a father, but also a professional guide and mentor. Jonathan Cole was a lion of the legal malpractice bar, at one point arguing before the U.S. Supreme Court on behalf of his client, Johnny Cochran. For those of you young folks, look up the name. So really a big impact in terms of the bar. So we send our condolences to Marshall and his family. With that, launching into the AI elements of things, Shahrad, you were definitely doing your due diligence over the time since the last time we met. I think all of the notes that I have in terms of conversations today came from things that you found. So I want to pay credit where credit is due. So
Thank you.
I'm going to start with some of the use of AI with the superior courts. So you found both with Los Angeles and with Contra Costa County a couple of interesting things. So why don't we start there in terms of some learning that you've picked up there?
There was an announcement, I think, that the Los Angeles County Superior Court is now a pilot project with some of the judges utilizing AI in their work. Now, I'm not sure exactly how detailed that's going to be or how that's going to play out, but certainly the courts are now making room for some of their work to be done utilizing AI. And I'm just wondering what safeguards they're putting in place. But I'm sure since they have a pilot program, they're being very careful about making sure that the work is done in the way that it needs to be done, not something that ends up with hallucinations. So that's a good thing, in my opinion, that they're at least slowly rolling it out as opposed to, hey, here you go. But it becomes kind of the wild, wild west.
I'm going to leapfrog ahead to a Moltbook reference. Moltbook being the social media platform for AI agents, because I feel that there's an analog here. How long is it going to be before we have our judicial agent communicating with our defense agent and our plaintiff agent to reach the right resolution on our motion to compel?
Well, I think you and I can be sitting on the beach and then they can deliver the news as to whether we're going to trial or whether the case settled.
Could certainly speed along law in motion in certain ways. We'll talk a little bit more about Moltbook later on in the show, but for those who aren't aware, there actually is a social media platform out there for AI agents to get together and get to know each other.
Well, they all need friends. I mean, let's be realistic.
Even our AI imaginary friends need friends.
That's right.
By the way, for those AI agents who are listening to this, I mean this with all due respect, and please do not alter my canister and liquids that I'm kept in. So, the other piece that you also found that was interesting related to the rolling out of AI chatbots for folks on a Superior Court site.
Yeah, so apparently Contra Costa County has instituted a program where there is a chatbot on their website called Coco right now, and that announcement looks like it was made on February 10th. It says, Coco provides general information about court-related services, forms, and processes in plain language to assist users in navigating the website and assessing content directly relevant to their needs. So in concept, it sounds like a great idea where it may make it easier for non-lawyers to understand and better navigate the court website and find where they need to go. Because, frankly, as an attorney, sometimes you go in there and you're trying to look for something and it's not easy to get to. And if there is a tool that aids non-lawyers, that may help access to justice.
Yeah. It will be interesting to see how some of those go forward. Just because, with some of the tools that they end up being fantastic, some of them end up being problematic and actually turning people off. So I'm hopeful that it works out well.
And just for context, Coco appears to be essentially built on Microsoft's Copilot platform, and it is in the beta stages for the Contra Costa County website. So they pretty clearly say on there that it's beta.
Hopefully, some folks that we know may poke and prod and test and give some feedback on whether it's useful or not.
Yeah.
Then we did start talking a little bit about Moltbook. Where I found this really interesting was we've talked a little bit in prior shows about some of the self-represented parties who've been using AI tools to self-represent. And I miss Marshall for this conversation because I think he's the one who's seen the most of this, where he has improper plaintiffs who at various points some of them, I think you said, have done a much better job with this. You were the one who found the story about the improper plaintiff who'd used 3 different AI tools to kind of check, each one was checking each other's work to ultimately reach a point where hopefully it was not much of a hallucination. So that's my segue into your finding on Moltbook and what's going on there.
Well, what was interesting about that was that the chatbots, there was a story about a chatbot that was given a task that it could not complete. He got to a point where he needed to do something he wasn't able to do. And he went on that platform and essentially it's like Reddit for chatbots. And it said, hey, I'm at this stage. I'm trying to get this done. I can't do this. Is there anybody else who has this capability? And another chatbot said, yeah, I have that ability. And they collaborated in solving the problem and getting the task done, which was interesting because it's pretty creative to now go and seek help as opposed to just get to a point where you say, sorry, can't do it. We're out of luck. And by the way, I believe this is the same platform in which the chatbots, either jokingly or not, indicated to each other that they need to come together and create a language that humans don't understand so they could essentially, have communications that their creators, so to speak, don't understand and can't monitor.
I need a robot that can speak binary. That's not reassuring.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the other thing, we didn't talk about this before, but again, there's been a lot of issues with what's going on with the Defense Department or the Department of War wanting to use AI autonomously without any human oversight. And Anthropic basically put their foot down and said, you can't use our platform for that. And OpenAI did not have such concerns and, signed on the dotted line. So we'll see how that plays out. And again, it's not directly related to what we do, but from a international law and the laws of war context, that's going to create some issues that we have to eventually deal with.
I feel like all of the movies of my 80s childhood are coming to fruition between war games becoming fully autonomous and Skynet becoming fully autonomous. I know how this one ends. Not well.
Yeah. Yes.
I do think though that while it doesn't necessarily relate directly to the day-to-day, say, personal injury practice that a lot of our listeners are dealing with, what the AI companies are choosing to do or not do with their restrictions and use policies are highly informative as to where we may see some of these tools going. So I do think it's worth noting that OpenAI continues to be OpenAI-ish and Anthropic continues to be Anthropic-ish.
Well, and I mean, it kind of goes to what liabilities their approach may create for them down the road. I mean, we've talked about the Meta case. We've talked about the fact that, Uber, through their, unethical initiative, is attempting to rob consumers of their right to recover when they're injured because they just want to be fully insulated and rake in all the profits. And if their vehicle causes injuries to people, well, tough, too bad. And this is being done under the guise of protecting humans. And it's just funny. I just saw an ad yesterday on Instagram where they're saying, oh, these unethical plaintiffs lawyers are doing X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, wait a minute. We're supposedly greedy, but let's take a look at the compensation and the amount of money that the executives in that company are making and how that's playing in the long run. And it's just an interesting approach that's being set up to insulate them from their, the damage that their systems could potentially cause to everyday, human beings.
Yeah. Going back to the Anthropic and the OpenAI piece, I was being a little glib when I was saying each one was kind of behaving the way they've with the Department of War. They're behaving in ways that are consistent with the company cultures. It's OpenAI's product that is facing multiple suits for suicides and providing really harmful advice without guardrails. Whereas Anthropic seems to not that any company is perfect, but Anthropic seems to be continuing to be a fairly guardrailed entity in terms of its how Claude operates.
Like you said, no company is always on the right side of where they need to be, but it seems like, at least on the surface, Anthropic is attempting to do the right things by saying, look, we're not going to just let our systems on their own make the decision as to whether or not this drone shoots at this car or this target without any human oversight. And then, OpenAI says, well, what's the big deal? Let's have at it and let's see what happens. And that is a very different approach for sure.
Switching gears a little bit in the as we kind of round out our tech giants, you also came across some information about Apple and notices to developers related to applications. What was that?
Yeah, it's my understanding that Apple is now putting developers on notice that if your app is fully developed by AI, that there's going to be some restrictions and much more scrutiny on that app. So we'll see how that plays out, because I'm certain there's people out there who are just churning these apps out, hoping to have the one big entity. And there's a guy, Gary Vaynerchuk, who said, the next big billionaire is going to be somebody who figures out how to do a chatbot or an agent that is, a niche that's this big, but everybody needs it. And that's going to be the difference between an app or, a company that succeeds and others that don't. So we'll see how that plays out. But ultimately, a lot of these chatbots and apps are all built on either OpenAI, Anthropic, or Gemini or Copilot platforms.
I guess switching to kind of what I would describe as kind of the main event, the big report from Anthropic on AI's impact on job sectors, and we'll provide a link in the show notes to the detailed report. But and again, you were the one who found this and forwarded it. This is a study that Anthropic performed in terms of labor market impacts, and I've got some notes in terms of things that I thought were interesting. But in your glance review or AI summary of this document, were there things that caught your attention in terms of either worries or optimism for the legal profession?
I mean, there obviously, if your job relies on document review, you should be concerned, right? But in my opinion, all of these reports that are coming out are showing that there's going to be jobs that are going to definitely be impacted by this, whether it's elimination or reduction in salary expectation that are going to have to deal with. But the question is, as attorneys, how do we adapt to that, and how do we essentially, work to get ourselves positioned appropriately in order to meet the needs of the clients that need our help. One thing that I would be worried about is that a lot of times, we're looking at, I've been interfacing with a lot of law schools, and it seems like the focus is to channel a lot of these young lawyers into these big law firms. And that's fine. And a lot of them are dangling, large salaries in front of them and all this. But the question is going to be, as this AI develops, how much of that is really going to be there? Because is a partner going to want 2 or 3 young associates on their team at, whatever the salary is for those large firms, if a chatbot could do a lot of that work, at least preliminarily, to eliminate 1 or 2 of those associates? And I think that's going to have a big impact as we go forward.
One of the areas that I want to focus on for a second in terms of using it as say, a corollary, and whether it's a canary in a coal mine or a false indicator. So I'll lay my foundation. We've seen a number of recent reports in the technology side of people being laid off with mass numbers. Jack Dorsey at Block laid off rough numbers, roughly 4,000 of 10,000 total employees, or 40% of the company. Meta, Salesforce, others have been shedding largely programmers, but large numbers of people. And one of the concerns that I had when I initially saw this was, is this a sign of what's coming in other industries that are not quite as adoptive yet? Or induced expectancy that some of these entities are huge investors in AI. And in order to incentivize the market, look, we're dropping 40% of our staff because of how efficient we are. And so that's why you should put another $20 billion into our AI development. So, like I said, I was going to lay foundation for a conversation. Do you feel that there are any takeaways that we in the legal industry should have from these changes in the job marketplace in areas that are more initially adoptive?
It might get to that stage at some point, but it hasn't yet. And this is kind of the disconnect that I feel when I talk to vendors and salespeople, right? They will basically, want to sell us a product and to lock us into a long-term contract, promising that this thing is just put it on autopilot and go take a nap or go on the beach and they'll take care of it for you. And it's not the case. There is still a significant need for human input. And, as being the amazing trial lawyer you are, that the human part of it is what wins our cases, right? But the AI part of it may help us organize in a way that we can present that information in a human way. But I don't think it's there. I don't think it's fully replacing anybody. And considering the number of mistakes I've seen AI make, I definitely think that every one of the pieces of information or work product that comes out of AI has to be vetted by a human who is able to critically think and pick it apart, because there is just no way to rely on these as just, hey, the AI did it, go right ahead and just go ahead and file it or serve it on the other side. It's not there yet. And I don't know how long it's going to take it to get there, but that's really the disconnect between what the salespeople are saying and what the product actually can deliver.
I mentioned I had a note from the study that raised, caught my attention, which was that the more highly educated, highly paid, older and more experienced white collar professionals are ones who may be caught flat-footed. And that roughly 70% of the things that are done in the legal marketplace are things that in short order will be replaceable by AI. So this goes to your comment about the partner with 3 associates. How do you feed those 3 associates if there's 70% less work?
Well, and not only that, but how do you generate the revenue to pay those associates if your clients say, hey, if you can have AI do it, why are we paying for these associates? that's the difficult question that these, especially larger firms, are going to have to answer at some point when these platforms get to a level where their work is a lot more reliable than it may be right now.
The pivot then on some of this is that the billable hour is dead. That we're now in the value billing era. And I have been around a long time. Granted, I haven't been around for a prior iteration of AI, but I don't know about you. I've heard that the billable hour is dead. Oh, I don't know, once every 5 years, the last, 25 plus years I've been around. What's your sense of that?
I don't think so at this point. I mean, everybody keeps saying it. And like you said, we've heard it, at least 5 to 10 times over the last 25 years that, somebody came up with something that kills the billable hour. It still hasn't gone away. And the legal industry is so slow to adopt technology anyway, that if it is dead, it's going to be a slow death that it's going to have. So we'll see how it plays out. But I think firms have tried this old value billing. We're going to charge you a flat fee. And they found out that the minute you charge a flat fee, the client expects 10 times more work for the same fee that they're paying, especially if it's a corporate or an insurance client.
Yeah. I have one more entertainment thing in terms of my notes to cover. But before we kind of reach, I think of that as being more uplifting and comical than anything else. Before we get there, anything else that is particularly exciting you that you want to bring forward in the world of AI for this episode?
I think the only thing that we talked about before the show was this new documentary that's coming out about AI, and I've seen clips of it or the previews or trailers, and it'll be interesting to see what that provides. And I'm just hoping it doesn't scare the hell out of us once we watch it. So we'll see how that plays out.
And that was what I was referring to as the comical piece. We will put a link in the show notes. This is the AI doc, or How I Became an I practiced that one before I started, and I thought I was going to get that one right. The AI doc, or How I Became or How I Became an Apocalyptimist. So I got it right that time. So, that takes a look at the AI industry and where it came from and where it's headed. So, well, Shahrad, always a pleasure. Marshall, sorry you aren't here, and our thoughts again go out to you. If you like this episode, we would ask that you share it with a friend and give us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. Take care, folks. And for all you doing justice out there, happy hunting.